In our last exercise, we created a layout profile. Let's go in and edit that profile. So I'm going to go ahead and open up our exercise file 0705 profile edit. And we have our profile that's been laid out for us. And what we want to do is we're going to add some curves. So I'm going to select my profile, and from the contextual ribbon, choose from the Modify Profile panel, Geometry Editor. There's a lot of different ways to create our tangents. We can draw tangents without curves, with curves. When it draws the tangents with curves, what are the curve settings? We also can insert PVIs or delete PVIs as we see fit. What we're going to do is add some curves. Notice that constraints are very similar to alignments. So as we discussed in alignments, make sure that not only are we adding a curve or a line to our profile geometry, but that we've selected the correct constraint. And so more is covered in the alignments under the constraint types between fixed, floating, and free. As the case with alignments, generally speaking, it's a generality, but generally speaking, lines are going to be fixed, curves are going to be free. It's a good starting point. And then you can convince yourself and look at different reasons why you may use other types of constraints. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a free vertical curve, and we're going to create a free vertical parabolic curve using the PVIs. So I'm going to choose this method. It says, all right, pick a point near the PVI. And so I don't have to be directly on the PVI. I'm just going to pick near it. What is the curve length? Or you can use other methods. We're going to use the K value, and I'm going to simply type in 30 as my K value. It didn't create a very big one there, but we're going to just walk around and we're going to use 30 at all of our curves as our K value. And when I'm done, press enter. And of course the labels adjust because of the label set. Now, the closer I look at this, the more I realize we really don't need all of these different curves. I'm going to go ahead and select my profile and notice the different types of grips. As we've discussed before, the square grip allows us really to move fixed entities. In this case, the fixed entity would be the station elevation, not the XYZ. That's the coordinate that we're changing. But you also have other types of grips along our curves. You have the ability to change the vertical curve station beginning point, which ultimately changes the curve length in both directions. We have the ability to change the location of the PVI, which changes the grade in and out as well as information on the curve, especially if our curve was based on the K value. But the other two arrows are really powerful. They allow us to hold, in this case, the arrow to the right allows us to hold the grade coming into the curve and change the grade going out. In the process, of course, we relocate the PVI. And we can do the same thing with the other arrow. We can hold the grade going out by changing the grade going in, and in the process, of course, change the PVI. So a lot of different ways that we can adjust or edit using the grips. What we're going to do now, though, is I see that we really don't need all of these different PVIs. First, I'm going to just simply delete an entity. An entity removes a curve or a line from the profile. And so I'm going to delete this curve from the profile. And notice what happens. It simply goes back to having a PVI. It removes that element. I really don't even need the PVI. So I'm going to choose to delete the PVI. I'm going to pick that PVI. I'm going to pick that PVI, that PVI. We're going to leave this one. And so as I did that, even the curves that are associated with that PVI, because the curves are free, automatically disappear. So now I simply have to really adjust the geometry of the information, such as the grades and maybe the location for this PVI, so as to get a better design of my profile. And this is where the grid view really shines. We looked at the grid view before with alignments, but with alignments, we really don't have that much geometry or ability to make adjustments. Whereas here, we have the ability to not only change the station and the elevation, but also the grades in and outs. And for the curves, we have the same types of entries that we can use to make adjustments, such as the K value, curve length, and so forth. So let's change our grade going out, -2. And so we have 293. So we're a little tight up against this wall. I really want to have -2 coming into the curve and +2 going out. So that means I need to change my PVI to something maybe along station 850, maybe even more. I'm getting warmer. As you see, they're getting closer in grades. And notice it's immediate, so we immediately see all the changes in the model space. And so you make these adjustments and find out what's the closest number to get to. This is where you're going to spend most of your time as you adjust or create your profile design. You're going to spend it in your profile entities, or what they call the grid view, in the layout toolbar. And so we have all these different settings. We're so close. And there we go. Now we have -2 coming in and 2% going out. And of course, what is our K value? It stays at 30. But really, I want a nice round curve length more than a round K value. So we'll set our curve length to 120, which makes sure that our K value is handled. And so we can make all these different adjustments. Notice how we made these adjustments. We used our actual grips to graphically make edits. We use the ability to delete an entity to remove curves. We also use the ability to delete PVIs. And then we spend a majority of the time in our grid view. Now there is one additional editor that we haven't looked at. It's called Profile Layout Parameters. It's similar to the grid view, but when we open it up, we also need to define the method to fill the information into the parameters window. So I'm going to say select PVI, going to pick near that PVI, and so what it does is it's a grid view or tabular information about the items that are connected with that PVI. The curves, the station and elevations, and so forth. But one key factor we do not find in our grid view. This is where we can control the distance for our headlight stopping and passing, depending, of course, on our curve type. So if this is key to our design, we can also make adjustments here so as to get a value that works. Now, how does it know what is the height of the headlight? What is the angle, of course, of the headlight and so forth? That's all found in the feature settings in our drawing. But we can only use those values in our profile layout parameters. Using profile layout parameters requires 2 clicks. Opening up the parameters window and then choosing the method to select and fill the information into the parameters window.